Don't get me wrong. I know why it's tile. Something about tile in particular is really...
You think people are asking where their tuition dollars are going now?
We replace all of it with
Put hardwood. They tell all these great stories about their house being haunted, and I was like, can I come over? And they're like, yeah. And they invited me over one time. I'm like, all right, where's the ghost? And I was like, and you'd hear something, you'd be like, was that the ghost? And they're like, no, that's the toilet. So to call my cat mysterious, he comes through the door like Kramer and Seinfeld. So, not mysterious at all.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Pester the Professor,
a show where we get to know our professors a little bit more outside of the classroom.
We'll be right back right after this intro. Okay, welcome back. I'm Icarus.
I'm Madeline, and today we're here with the Father of KMOS, Josh Tomlinson.
Yes.
The father of...
The Father of KMOS. Oh no.
Our first question, Who are you?
I'm the Father of KMOS. I think we've established that.
Yeah.
I'm not on trial, here you are. No, I'm Josh Tomlinson. My official title is Director of Broadcasting Services and General Manager of KMOS. But I generally just use the term General Manager. It's some people have titles that like land with a thud in your inbox, and I'm just like General Manager.
Fair. Well, a question that we have to ask every single episode, and we've asked every other professor or mentor, is what is your favorite shoe?
My favorite shoe?
Yes.
You know, that's a very apt question. And I've actually, because I've seen the show, I get a chance to think about that. I got a chance to think about it, and I don't have a really good answer because shoes to me are more of a utilitarian thing than a fashion statement, and that comes a little bit from me growing up. Like getting an expensive shoe was not an option. And so it was getting a shoe that would last, that was an option. And so, you know, now generally, like, I treat shoes like they're tires for my feet. And that's why I end up with things like one of my favorite work shoes is the safety step, because it looks kind of like a dress shoe, but it also has the grip of a boot, because I am very clumsy and I would just slide down the hall if I didn't have something like that. But yeah. Yeah,
tile floors are slippery. I wish that we could replace all tiles on campus with, like, carpet or hardwood, although I know hardwood would be very expensive. I know why it's tile. Don't get me wrong. I know why it's tile. Something about tile in particular is really...
You think people are asking where their tuition dollars are going now?
We replace all of it with
Put hardwood. That's classic
nice,
birch that we're using. You know?
How did you end up with your job here?
How did I end up with so I was a student here 150 years ago or so, and I worked in master control. And after I graduated, I, tried to make my way being a freelancer and doing all kinds of work in the IT field, in the communication field. But I wasn't very good at charging, so I was also working in retail just to keep a steady paycheck and some health insurance. And then about 2008, the position of on-air operations coordinator came open here, and I was still in the area, and I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and put in for that. And it was a guy named Fred Hunt, and Fred had been here for a very long time, and he had passed away right before that job opened, and I applied for it, and I got it. And then, it was just steadily keeping my head down, doing the best I could to keep us on the air. And then one day they said, we need a new general manager, and everyone else stepped back, and I was like, what's going on? And here I am.
Fair enough.
Did you always think that you were going to do something like that?
No, I never set out to be a manager of a TV station. That was never a goal of mine. And part of the problem was I never really had a great goal. And by that, there was any one thing I wanted to do. I kind of like doing a little bit of everything. And so I'm lucky in being able to work at KMOS because as the general manager, because it's a small enough station that I could do a little bit of everything, and I get to do a little bit of everything. And sometimes I wonder what other station managers do when they have like full staffs to do all these different departments, and I'm kind of hopping through each one, but I kind of enjoy being a little bit more hands-on that way.
Yeah. I feel like that makes sense for you. Something that I'm very curious about, does it look the same here as it did when you were a student and worked here?
No, actually, and when I came back, it still looked very much like it. And up until about 2016, it was very much still the same place. And it's been since I was put in charge that we really kind of changed it up. And it wasn't because I had any problem with the old look of it, but we started with master control. So, like, you know what master control looks like now. There used to be where that glass wall is, there was a door, and you'd walk in that door into master control, and that little room was not there. It was part of a bigger room. And the idea of just being able to walk in off the street and go straight into a master control didn't seem a good idea security-wise. But also having a separate room is so much better when your job is monitoring the audio and video quality, and you can hear it is very important. And then, just the little things like the Red Digital Studios room that is in use now used to be a radio station, and so there's no longer a radio station there. But from little things like from that room to the hallway, like the carpet was the exact same. It had been there since like 1979, and so we put a whole new carpet in. Production control is different now, and this studio, of course, is hugely different. So, and then slowly we've been going through as offices have been vacated and remodeling offices, and that's why you see a bunch of different carpet styles, because there isn't one uniform one. But I think after what we discussed earlier, we are going to go to hardwood.
I was going to say, your next step. You got to go straight to hardwood flooring.
Have students always been allowed to work here, or is that like a new thing?
No, that's been something that's been part of KMOS since it started in 1979. The way the students worked here changed significantly, though, because in 1979, when it started, you had to volunteer. There were no paid positions, and so, but they would still have a huge amount of volunteers. And then probably in the mid 80s, they started paying the students. But then there were only a handful of paid positions, and everybody was doing their best to get one of them. And then it's probably about 2000, that way up in, like, when I was here, you had to volunteer for a semester before they would even consider hiring you. And then about 2008, when I started, we shifted more to a pay from the beginning model, because that also kind of hit at that same time where you started to look around at how much free labor people were getting for interns, and you had to look at the fairness of it. And so it's it's not the greatest pay in the world, but I think when I started, I was making maybe $4.25 an hour, so it's a little bit better than that now.
Yeah, certainly. So getting back to some of our more silly questions, I guess. Sorry. If you were an animal, what animal would you be?
If I was an animal, what animal I'd be? Well, this is kind of like that movie. Have you seen that movie, The Lobster? No. If you get a chance like that where you've got to pick an animal, if you don't partner up with somebody, they turn you into an animal. Oh. And so that kind of question makes me think about that movie. But I don't know. Because I'm a big fan of cats, because I have cats and I like dogs too. I'm gonna go with a cat. I'd be a cat, an indoor cat. They just kind of hung out.
Really? What? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. Following that question, what kind of color of cat do you think you are?
Well, a lot of days I feel like an orange cat, but because just that kind of bumbling through life thing. But also, my general malaise that I feel on a regular basis, I think I'm a black cat sometimes too. So.
I believe the cat that we assigned you was a black cat.
Yeah.
Yes. Mysterious, kind of in your little back office. And
I have a black cat, and he is not mysterious at all.
My black cat is not mysterious either, but it's like the idea of a black
cat. That's what I was gonna say. To call my cat mysterious. No. He comes through the door like Kramer and Seinfeld. So, not mysterious at all.
Yeah, no, my black cat is also not mysterious, and he is absolutely stupid, but I love him.
Do you have any more pets, or is that
I just have 2 cats. When I moved into my house, my sister, who lives over in St. Louis, has been into animal rescues for years, And she was on the verge of, she was sending me pets constantly. She's like, now that you have a house, and she's like, I've got this dog, it's in a FedEx box ready to come over, and that kind of stuff. And then she'd be like, oh, I found somebody else to take the dog. And I was like, well, I'll tell you, I haven't had a pet for a long time. I'll start with a cat. And you don't start with one cat, you get 2 cats. Mm-hmm. And then they get kind of used to their lifestyle, and you're like, well, I don't want to ruin it for you. So, but I like dogs just as much as I like cats. It's just I happen to get cats first.
Yeah. Did you have another question you wanted to ask?
About cats? No.
No, just about
But I am
anything,
curious. Yeah. I had a question. I'm going to ask my question now.
Okay.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color? You know, I'm a big fan of the color purple. But, you know, and as long as it isn't in the high pastels, I'm fine with just about anything. Like when I went to, in my high school years, when I went to prom, I got a purple tux, and I used to have really nice red hair. Oh, wow. And everyone said, oh, that's going to go really good with your red hair. So I dyed my hair purple. And I was like, there you go.
Commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
so cool.
I thought that would go either one of 2 ways. You know, like most adults, I guess will either say, oh, well, you know, adults don't have favorite colors. That's too childish. And I thought maybe being a very practical, you know, adult as you are, you would go that way. So I'm a little surprised to hear purple.
Well, that was my favorite color when I was a kid, and I was like, well, it's worked ever since then. I don't think I need to change it.
Yeah.
And you can have a favorite color. I don't know why adults don't feel like they can have a favorite color.
I don't know why either. It's just a
they
thing.
don't like fun.
Yeah, no.
Having the fun.
Yeah. What's your favorite hobby outside of... I guess KMOS isn't a hobby, it's just work. We think of it as a hobby sometimes.
Well, you know,
I
have a lot of interests. I like to read is one of them, but one of the things I do is I'm a model builder. Like I build scale models of things, either 3D printed or stuff that's from like kits and things like that. It's generally about pop culture, but it's something to keep. Like I remember, like my grandparents, as they got older, their hands got less useful because they weren't doing anything with them, and so I was like, I got to keep my hands nimble, or else I won't be able to do anything when I get older. So, but yeah, that's my hobby.
Do you have any hidden talents, or is that like your hidden talent?
No, and that is not a hidden talent. As a matter of fact, everything looks almost like it's like maybe 10% melted when I'm done with it.
Oh, no.
No, I don't really have any hidden talents. See, that's my problem. Is I think I'm a creative person, but I'm horribly untalented. So nothing I ever imagined turns out the way it's supposed to.
But we need creative leaders too. We can't always just have people who are creative, like painters or practically creative, but we need creative leaders as well. So, because creative people are chaotic in their brains. Yeah, we would never get anything done if we didn't have at least one like leader amongst our group at all times.
Yeah, it's funny is you're not putting yourself in that leader category, but all the time you're leading groups.
Well,
and that's why I like
someone has to be.
I've consciously, like this semester with the practicum, I'm like, all right, I know I want to look at Icarus to ask how things are going, but I gotta kind of spread the love there, you know.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm a creative leader, so maybe. So one of my favorite things, speaking of like work and stuff, you at all of our meetings you always share like a story from your, well, not all of them, but most of the meetings you share a fun story from your past. So what is maybe one of your favorite stories from college or life, the before times?
Well, I should tell you, I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I show a story is because I don't normally have enough stuff to get up to 30 minutes. And I know some of you have stuck around till the end of the day, and you're like, I just want to go home. And I feel like, well, I got to give them at least 30 minutes out of this. But you know, I have a lot of, there were a lot of fun times and a lot of fun stories from college. You know, and it's I don't have any one that sticks out above the others because they all kind of blend together. And also, I think part of it is I see so much of what it was like for me going to college when you guys are doing projects. But thankfully, you haven't been doing any of the sillier, at least I don't know that you have, some of the sillier stuff. Like, now you can get a GoPro camera if you want a driving shot. I remember more than once needing a driving shot, and it was me on the hood of a car, you know, with a camera. You know, desperately telling the person, whatever you do, if I slide off, don't slow down. Just go right over me.
Yeah, we haven't done any of that here, but I think there may have been a camera on top of a truck for an MCA production or two, maybe. But none of that has been done with KMOS gear.
I appreciate
just
that.
So you know.
Well, and that's why Roy won't appear on this thing. You might get that question, have to admit he's the one doing it.
Yeah, he's the one on top of a on top of a car with a camera. Do you have a question?
No, I'm still thinking about your cats. Like, what's your cat's name?
What are my cats' names?
Yeah.
Oh, so the male cat, and they're litter mates. They're brother and sister. I got them at the same time, and they're about 10 years old now. And the male cat's name is Flop Johnson.
Flop Johnson.
And his sister, who's a female cat, she's a tortie. Her name is Ella Bean. But I call him Flop and the Bean. and you know, I always make jokes about it. Is when you get pets, and I apologize for anyone who thinks this kind of stuff's weird, but I think it's hilarious, is I make up like fake backstories on my cats based on their names.
I've done the same thing.
So Flop Johnson is a former jazz saxophonist, and Ella Bean, I call her Ella the Machine Bean, and she used to be a former Mexican lucha wrestler. And so that's their backstory. And I told somebody once, I go, my life is a really crappy network TV comedy pitch. It's a milquetoast, low-level TV executive who lives with a former failed jazz saxophonist and a former Mexican lucha wrestler. So
write that down. We got to make that.
Are you more of like a TV person or a film person?
You know what? I'm a big film person now. I think TV has been one of the more formative things in my life, and I love TV history, but I don't watch as much TV as I used to. And a lot of it is because it's gone to streaming, and it's so scattered, and it's hard to keep up with it all. And the other thing is you get people who are like, you gotta watch this show. Like I know people who are like, I got a list of shows you should watch. I'm like, you're giving me homework? I'm not gonna do that. You know that?
No.
So I really like film and I really like TV, but there isn't one thing I love more than the other. So.
Is there any film or TV show that you would say have changed your life since watching it?
Since watching it? Well, if you go back to when I was really, in my formative years, like my early teenage years, I was a huge fan of MASH, the TV show MASH. And I know a lot of people are like, that show is so boring, I don't know where. Well, especially it's, basically it's two different shows that happened. The first half is very much a comedy, and the second half is very much a more of a half-hour drama with comedy in it. But Alan Alda's performance in there, as well as Larry Gelbart's writing, is probably some of the best comedy writing that I remember, and it was always so deadpan. And I always joked, I go, well, that's where I steal my comedy delivery is from Alan Alda in MASH sometimes, although I'm not near as charming as he is, because he could sell that. And me, it just comes across as like, I don't know if he's being serious or not, so just act like he's funny.
I will say there are some days where I'm like, is Josh saying a joke right now, or is this just...
And, in my mind, it's clearly a joke, but I guess my delivery is just so deadpan that they're like, yes, we'll do that. We'll jump right now. Feel free to ask. That's...
Yeah.
So you didn't know what you wanted to do when you were younger, or like did you have like were you like I want to be a firefighter? Or something
No.
like that?
I always wanted to do something in some form in the communication industry. I say that like I'm in a job interview. I wanted to make movies or make TV. I always did. And it was that I think we all have that experience, but you have both had that the first time you've made something and showed it to a group of people and they actually genuinely laughed or had an emotional reaction, and how intoxicating that is. You're like, this is the only feeling I want for the rest of my life. This is all I want to be. And then later you realize how much actual work goes into it, and your family's awful polite watching your stuff. So.
Yeah, and then you'll have a really, really good one, and then the next one that you make, like, it just does not land quite the same, and you're like, oh, I actually want to quit everything, and I never want to do this ever again.
Yeah, and there is a high, what I like to call the high, this sucks factor, when you're that first day of shooting. It's you lead up to it, and you just feel like you're like, why did I just do this? I mean, there's still time to join the clergy. I don't need to make movies,
Clergy.
And and then in the end, you get it done, and somebody described to me, it's like having a child. You kind of forget how painful it was.
Yeah, and then you go to make another, and then day one, I'm pretty sure there was a witch like 100 years ago. 100 years ago. Oh my God, I can't talk. 100 years ago or so, who placed a curse on like the day one of shooting for every production ever, because there's something in the air about the first day of every single production that's like things just don't go quite right.
Yep.
Especially if it's early in the morning. Everybody's cranky and doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always important to provide coffee and donuts for the crew if you're doing an early morning shoot. And, you know, I remember when I was in college, like, we'd do a lot of late night shoots, and you'd have to provide beer for the people who were old enough to drink the beer.
Yeah.
Those who were not got to drive everyone else around.
Yeah. Usually we provide several boxes of energy drinks. Yeah.
What was your first project?
My first project? Oh, I mean, my first one, like in high school, it would have had something to do with Les Miserables, because I was in French class, and the teacher of that was a very progressive kind of thinking teacher in what they were wanting us to do. So he would have let me do a film, and I would have preferred to do a film than write a paper any day of the week. So that probably was one of the very early projects. Yeah.
Do you ever like get kind of disappointed that you're not on the production side anymore, or at least not as much as you used to be, and now you're more on kind of the business side of things?
No, not really.
No?
It goes back to that thing, like you asked if I like movies, and I do like movies, and part of the reason I wanted to make movies is because I like movies so much, and then I got to make movies, and it kind of made me think, I'm like, you know, just because I like to eat doesn't mean I need to be a chef.
Fair.
That's not to say I don't ever go back on the production side and do my own things. It's like this whole day I've been editing a spot with Mr. Rogers in it, but it isn't anything I shot because obviously Mr. Rogers passed away. You know, I do not, and this is something important for me, I do not have any regrets about the change in my career path.
Fair.
Forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, are they like similar, like the production and the business side? Are they similar, or are they like widely different?
Outside of the planning part of it, you always want to be planning and prepping wherever you're at. If you're on the business side, you want to be planning and prepping, and you're always looking for problems. On the production side, you're doing the same thing, but it extracts all of the joy that happens on the other end of the project, because when you get done with a production, you probably have a cool thing you can show people. When you get done on the business side, you get to start again
with more business.
Yeah, it's like if you complete a fiscal year, you don't get to like display your fiscal year, you just start another fiscal year. So
that makes sense.
But that's a good question, and that is probably the big difference. But I'm also lucky that I get to work with all of you, because you're not to know this, but whenever you get done with a project, I show it off to everyone I know.
Aww.
And I say, see what they did because of me. And then I turn around to you guys and say, no, I had nothing to do with this. This was all you. But no, it's more exciting for me to see the work that you all produce than it is for me to see any of the junk that I would produce in your place. So.
Well, that's actually very sweet. That's why we called you the Father of KMOS. You're like all of our dads that we all need for us back home. That not all of us have at times. So I saw we had a specific question that the crew is wanting to ask, and it's if you had the chance to clone yourself, would you, and why?
Would I clone myself? No.
Yeah.
I think the universe probably has its full of me on a daily basis. And also, I don't have enough work to keep me busy, let alone a second me. Yeah. You know, and I eat a lot of food. I don't want to share.
Fair enough.
Do you believe in like anything else, like worldly, like aliens or
ghosts? You know, aliens. Yeah, I think that you can't have a universe as vast as this and as unexplored as this and not have some other form of life. You know what? And I'd love to believe in ghosts because I love a good ghost story. But also, the fact that the thing that diminishes my belief in ghosts is that anything that is proof of it goes down with the advent of the camera doesn't prove to be very likely that that's a real phenomena. But I have tried to go like places where it's been haunted, and like I had somebody I knew that they tell all these great stories about their house being haunted, and I was like, can I come over? And they're like, yeah. And they invited me over one time, and I'm like, all right, where's the ghost? And I was like, and you'd hear something, you'd be like, was that the ghost? And they're like, no, that's the toilet. So
they should have said yes.
Yeah, I know. So
Fools.
I've never experienced any ghosts. Have you all experienced ghosts?
I don't think so.
We went, my family and we went to like, I think it's Jefferson City, like the haunted prison.
The prison, yeah.
Yeah. And I was so mad because my brothers don't believe in that stuff. Me and my mom do. And so we were so excited to get ghosted. And we didn't have anything happen to us, but my brothers did. And they totally like blowed it off. They're like, oh, there was some guy whispering in my ear. And I'm like, well, why couldn't that happen to me? You're making fun of it. I would not have made fun of it. I would have been like, a ghost just whispered in my ear. It's pretty sick.
And you think about it, though, the idea of being a ghost is horrifying. Like, what am I going to do? Go through all this just to hang around?
Just to be stuck somewhere? No. No, I have never had any true ghost experiences, aside from any fake ones that were produced on some Thomas Delzite sets, because he's all about that. Fake ghost,
you
mock
got that
ghost
whole Zach Baggins thing going on.
That's actually that's the exact person he's imitating, is Zach Baggins of Ghost Adventures,
What gets you up in the morning?
Okay.
Other
than like literal things, like coffee and an alarm clock.
Actually, I don't wake up to the alarm clock anymore. I don't know why, but I'm able to get up on time without it, which is the greatest accomplishment of my entire life, because there is nothing in the world more damning to your soul than the alarm clock.
Yes, truly.
Maybe, but I never regret. I never regret. I never have a moment where I am dreading coming to work, and that's pretty good for me, because I don't drink coffee. I get up and I have a glass of water and I get dressed and I come to work. I never wake up in the morning and think, I don't want to go in and do this. And I think that is the thing that keeps me going, is that I don't feel that way, because I have had jobs where I felt that way. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. I'm not looking forward to being there. No, I have no problem coming to work, and that's what gets me up in the morning. And what keeps me going throughout the day is is the work that we do is very important. And then, of course, getting to work with all of you is very, very much something I appreciate being able to do, and keeps me coming to work.
On the flip side of that, do you think there's anything that maybe holds you back?
Yes, bureaucracy.
Yes, fair enough.
that is the number one thing that holds me back from doing a lot of things. And it's not just like the wall that I would run into doing it. Is you do hit a kind of a thing where you're like, I don't know if I even want to tackle that, because you're always questioning, is the amount of work I put in, or I'm going to put in to get that even passed through the most simple bureaucracy worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? That's the only thing I think that holds me back. But also, I will barrel straight through that stuff. It's important enough. And you could look around you and see that, like, when we finally decided to pull the trigger and remodel the studio, I did it because I saw all of you doing the work that you were doing down here, and coming and changing the lights and hanging things up. And I was like, all right, well, somebody's going to use it. We're going to do it. And there was quite a lot of bureaucracy to power through, but it happened. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm very thankful we didn't get hardwood floors, because it meant that we got this studio in some way.
Don't even mention it to Andy. He'll be like, I'll go to Lowe's now and we'll get some hardwood floors.
We'll get the hardwood.
If you had to change your career path, what would you do? Like, if you couldn't do this?
I was telling somebody about this last week. I was talking to an old boss of mine. I go, if this job disappeared, I would just go to yard sales and sell stuff on eBay. I don't know that I'd want to go back into another organization that was as a legitimate job. I would love to just go, because I love going to an estate sale or a yard sale or something like that and finding all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah. But the problem is, I don't like most of the cool stuff. I'm like, I don't want to sell that. That's too neat. I mean, I was at a place and I found a legitimate 6-foot Hellraiser statue from the movie Hellraiser, and it was super cheap, and I was like, I'm getting that, because I got it super cheap, and it goes for like $1,200, but it's in my living room, scaring the neighbors. So.
That's pretty cool. That's how I am with. I've gotten into ceramics this semester, because I had to take a class. And the hardest part is, like, I want to give the things away or, like, sell them and, like, make it useful, but I'm like, but I want to keep all the things that I make. And
you work so hard on it, though.
I know. You spend so much time working on it. Not quite the same as, going to a yard sale and finding something really cool, but similar. So we unfortunately are running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one question that we always like to close with, and it's, what is a piece of advice you would like to share, either to future students who may be watching or just people in general? What's your life advice you've gathered?
I think it would be the things that are driving you crazy right now, the things that you think are important and are dragging you down, are not going to be important to you in 5 years, and don't let them bury you. That every day, every week, every month, every year that you get through, you're preparing yourself for the next thing you have to deal with. And so that each time you run into a problem, that you will become stronger and you will get through it. But you have to remember that it's always on the other side of that. So yeah, really, so George Carlin put it best. He said, "Don't sweat the petty things and don't pet the sweaty things."
That is great advice, certainly. Yes. So that is all we have time for on this episode of Pester the Professor. Any closing thoughts?
No, that was really good. That's
Yeah.
really good advice. I don't like sweaty things at all.
No.
So.
Well, join us for our next episode where we have another professor to pester. All right. Bye.